Welcome to episode 4 of Chambers Chatter. I'm Laura Chambers-Babeles.
And I'm Shay Chambers-Helms. We are so excited today to feature Barbara Amar Goodwin Deloach,
Otherwise known as Cookie Granny. So tell us from the beginning, where were you born?
Well, I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina. Both my parents lived there. My daddy was a pharmacist there at that time, and then we lived in different places. And then we settled for a good number of years in Apex, North Carolina, the highest point of the Seaboard Railroad.
Oh,
Claim to fame, you know. So Daddy had a pharmacy there, and it was a good little town to grow up in. I've been back since, and I don't even know where things are. It's changed so much.
Oh, I can imagine.
Near Raleigh and Durham, and then, so Apex is real near that. So, but eventually we made our way to Beaufort, and it was Beaufort's. What better place could you have to be growing up with the river and the boats and the beaches and not even to mention the different cultural exposures and advantages you can learn about. So,
how old were you when you moved to Beaufort?
Well, actually, I would come in the summer times all the time. But we didn't move as a whole family unit until I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
But I was, in the summertime, we would play around going out in the boat and skiing with Michael Kaiserling, and he had a friend named Hammy Hamilton. He was always along, and then I had a cousin that she was from Atlanta. So the four of us would do a lot together. So all this time I was telling everybody I dated the Kaiserling. I said, and then he looked at me and said, "You didn't date me. You were dating my friend Hammy. I was dating your cousin." So anyway, that went on several years, but so that just shows you, as that age group in the 7th grade, you don't know who you're dating. You just go as a gang, But anyway, Michael said, no, you didn't. You were dating Hammy, and I was dating your cousin, too. But anyway, Beaufort afforded a lot of experiences. I would come and stay with my grandmother some in the summer. Beaufort was just so much smaller then that the phone book was this big and this thin.
Oh, wow.
So that's how, and I think it just had maybe even just 4 numbers at that time. But anyway, it was such a small community that when I would come to town in the Beaufort Gazette, it would have some little article. Cookie from North Carolina has come to visit her grandmother, and we're glad to have her.
Yeah, like a celebrity.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
And only in little hometown Beaufort would something like that be. But so I would stay with her. And then one of my favorite memories is she lived over on the point. And so, the roads in there were dirt at that time. So they sent my bicycle down from North Carolina. And I was so excited. The first time I got on my bicycle to take off, and I just did a flip. I had no idea about riding bicycles in sand.
Oh, no.
So that was an experience. And another thing that I really treasure is that in any day of the week, you may see these, the black women coming down the street and with a wheelbarrow, and there would be 2 of them. And they had a big coffee can, and they would be going, "Swimps for sale," and they would measure your quantity out in coffee can size. But when the vegetable man came by, he had a truck and he had scales. But, so he would weigh his things out. But that was fun, too, seeing that difference. We didn't have anybody telling us about swimps for sale up there in North Carolina.
And what is that?
Shrimp.
Oh, shrimp.
Yes.
But the girls would say, "Swimps for sale."
Oh, my goodness.
Shrimp.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. That's amazing.
I thought everybody knew that, But anyway, so that was some of my treasured memories. And I have, of course, a lot of things that are treasured for Beaufort, South Carolina. So
once you moved here as a high school or a senior in high school, were you here? Are you here indefinitely from that point on?
Oh, no. But then I went off to college. Say, what am I going to study? Loved marine biology. Then I thought, no, I'm going to be a missionary. I'm going to save the world, And Daddy's pharmacist. My uncle's a pharmacist. And anyway, so they said, you better think about that just a little bit, And I said, it was either pharmacy or go be a missionary. Anyway, so I finally decided pharmacy, First, I started off at Queens College Presbyterian. That was when I was going to be a missionary, But I was always thinking about pharmacy. But then, after getting to Queens, I decided I really wasn't missionary material. Because anyway, it showed that I really wasn't committed if I looked at the group of girls that were going to be studying all that area of work. And I said, I don't think I fit in this group too well. So anyway, I decided, then I went to Chapel Hill. And that was fun. I had a lot of fun there. So in pharmacy, I have thoroughly enjoyed my profession of pharmacy.
Okay. And when did you open up a practice in Beaufort?
Now that is a story. Okay, when I first, a real story. When I first got out, I went to Duke University. My dean at the pharmacy said, this would be a good experience. And I said, yes, okay, I'll do that first. The salary for the first year, now this was 1964 when I graduated, was $5,000 at a university hospital,
Oh my goodness.
But the dean said, this will be good background. I said, okay, sign me up. So I did that, and I'm glad I did. And then I was into all retail pharmacy, chain store and uncles and daddies and whatnot. But then the thing that I really enjoyed the most was I was the first one in South Carolina. First one in South Carolina to be a home infusion company that was just really strictly infusion pharmacy. No tablets, no what we call compounding these days, creams and lozenges. Strictly IV infusion.
Really?
Wow. I just loved being in the middle of that. And what happened was, it's how I even heard about it. I had gotten active in the Pharmacy Association and ended up serving as president. And then after that went over and served as chairman of the board of pharmacy. So when we were in that, arena of people, when they have these big national meetings, they send you off to them. So when I went to one of them, I said, what is this word? I said, I got to choose these courses to get my CE. It says a big word is, now my friends know what this word is, but at that time I had not a clue what the word was. So it said hyperalimentation. I go, what is it? I'll check that. I'll see what that's all about. And then I found out that Medicare was going to open up doing those services in the home, not just keeping them in the hospital, adding expenses to Medicare. So I said, that sounds interesting, but I had not a clue what else. I went to the meeting anyway. The two men that gave the meeting, the first meeting you walked into, that was just first remoted at these conferences, it was a big room, but you know how many people were in the audience to hear the two speakers from Atlanta? I think 4.
Oh my gosh.
4, and I may be wrong, maybe been 3. And I was one, and I go, what's going on around here, Nobody was here. I said, but I'm going to see what this big word is. So I did it, and it was hyperalimentation. We don't need to get into that now, but it's by central lines or either PIC lines in the arm, but a central vein. You're totally feeding a person who may not even have a stomach or a part of their anyway. So it's a big word, and along with it was big to do about credentials, about the steps to go through doing it. Just a sterile IV laboratory, just like at the hospital. All of it.
Right.
So anyway, but the more complicated it got, the better I loved it, So that's how I went to, now this is a story too. This one's interesting. I went to, I don't even know if my friend Mary Ann has ever heard this story. Don't know. But anyway, went to this big meeting, okay, one of these big, and it was Salt Lake City, and I had been in the home infusion for a while, and maybe early 90s, and the DEA Now, the DEA is kind of like kin to the IRS. You don't challenge them too much, you know.
You don't mess with
Anyway,
them.
so they had told all the pharmacy that no more compounding. And what they're saying compounding, I think they were thinking like, you know, rubbing creams on, making special lozenges, but no more compounding in pharmacy on a local private level. Everything is going to come from well, I'll just take this detour from Big Pharma. Okay, so you see where I'm going with the story.
Yeah.
No products made in the local pharmacies. All of it's going to come from manufacturing where we can regulate it and keep an eye on it for quality control. You get the picture? Well, anyway, so I went to the big national meeting in the not state, but national. And then in a lot of, it's like 3 days, but I know at least 2 days, it was this DEA group. They were going to tell us about it. They're not getting our opinion. They were telling us what's going to happen. Of course, we didn't like that because there are a lot of the pharmacists, not like now, there's lots of it now, but at that time there were a few that wanted to make special things. And they said, and there was like either 9 or 10 from the DEA lined up at this long table, giving these, he gave a talk and this one gave a talk, but it was all about you're not going to be doing compound anymore and the reasons why. Not our opinion, but this is what's going to happen. So one of them stood up and gave a talk, and I listened to him, and of course, I already had my idea about it. Of course, when he sat down, he said, well, no, he was still standing. Are there any questions? So I was first hand up, you know. So I got up and I said, well, let me just explain to you, first of all, my background. First of all, my brother had done a lot of research. Anyway, our family back in France, as early as the 1100s, were pharmacists. They were chemists at that time, you know. But they were compounding. They were practicing pharmacy. And it is carried on through our family till right now. And I'm in the kind of pharmacy that we do compounding. And we have to do compounding because there's no other way to take care of the patient. I said, if these patients need lab changes with TPN, which was that hyperalimentation, you go change it that day. You know, you don't wait for Big Pharma to send you out a new package, which really wouldn't have fit that particular situation in the first place. So we do this right on the spur of the moment that day, you know. So I explained that's how we do. And I said, you know, there's no other way to get this done. Pharmacy manufacturing cannot be timely with that. So so I say, well, to close it is, I'll just say, our family's been a long time, and that's what we are by definition. We're pharmacists. So we don't need, and I'm just kind of Vulcan with them, we don't need to ask permission to do something that is what we are, you know. And I said, besides, you know, I've been doing this, our family's been doing this a long time, so I just have pharmacy in my genes. That's all I can handle, you know, and sat down. And the crowd in the room, and it was a big crowd from all over different states, and they just were cheering and clapping. I said, wow. Yeah. Anyway, so I said, well, that's a good feeling. You know? Yeah. So I sat down, and somebody else talked about up there at the speakers, and then they took the break. And you know how they have this space between all these long tables where you can walk down, then they'll have the other set of 3 tables. Anyway, so the speaker who I listened to, he came, and I had already had my say. He came walking down, and then I said, well, he's going out the room. He turned and started coming down to my seat. I go, oh, this might not be good. And he walked down, and I leaned over and said, I just want to tell you something. And I was going, okay, I'd be glad to hear it. And he said, I want to thank you for what you said.
Standing up.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, then and a few months later, and I don't know why, but he was not with the FDA, he was not with them anymore. So I don't know if he was fired or what. I don't know. Or if he maybe chose to leave. Right. The DEA, excuse me. The DEA. And so, so I don't know what happened, but now you look around, there are compounding pharmacies everywhere.
Everywhere.
So the whole profession was able to, counteract that movement. So that was good that they stopped that. So anyway, so that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
On that.
And where was your practice?
Right here in Beaufort, and it was, that leads to another interesting story. Okay. I had more fun in that work than you can imagine. I loved it. And like I said, the more complicated the patient was, the more I was into it, Okay. So anyway, so it was right over there. I don't know if you remember where, I think there was a huddle house within a medical complex. Anyway, it was a group of on Reboat Road, right near the hospital.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, the hospital loved it. They just sent everything over there. Said, we can just pick up one phone call and you would get the medical equipment. We had a nursing agency, and that was another story I inherited under duress. But anyway, and they said, we just love calling that one phone call and we get it all done, I said, okay. But anyway, this story is interesting. Okay, I had all these children. Well, this particular child, my first and precious born, anyway, is a surgeon. Mm-hmm. So he had just opened up at this time his own practice. And that that time it was in that same medical complex. So we were right across the parking lot. He said, came over to my place and he said, Mama, I got my first cataract patient, first one, and I'm so excited about it, but I can't take the patient. And my mother and I were sitting there. We called her Granny because the children called her Granny, but my name was Coosie Granny. But anyway, so Granny and I were sitting there, and we looked at each other and said, why can't you take your patient? She says, well, the nursing agencies and the rules of, home health nursing sponsored by the state plans would only allow nurses to come in and out quickly, not stay long terms, and certainly not come in multiple times. He said, there's no one to put those drops in her eyes, and you have to have the drops, or you can't do surgery and send them home, period. Oh, that's terrible. I said, well, how many times a day you have to put these drops in? He said, just 4. And he didn't know he just wasn't going to be able to take the patients. So Granny and I said, you just don't worry about that. We'll go get that patient from the hospital on the day of surgery, and we'll take that patient home, and we will take care of that patient. Okay. Oh. And Ricky said, you would do that? So we did that. Now, here's what happened. And it was funny. It all turned out nicely. But I'm not supposed to say names. I don't remember her name. But she was just the nicest little black lady from up there past Gardens Corner. But anyway, she came and we got her home, and she came home in the car with her little boot bonnet and her little booties, and she kept those on. We got her all set up in the big, beautiful den overlooking the Chowan Creek and the French doors, and it had pull-out sofa. So we pulled out the sofa and got her all set up, and she stayed there. And about after, and we took really good care of her. And Granny was cooking all kind of good food for her. And finally, came time for her to go home. And I said, well, now it's time for you to go home. You've done your 3 days, And she said, oh, no, I like it here. No, she said, no, you nurses are so good to me. Aww. And she said, and the food. Granny was fixing the pork roast with all the gravy and the celery, and it was... No, I'm happy. I'm going to stay here. No, you're not going to stay here because we have to take you home. So finally, we took her home. She agreed that she'd go home at one more day. But she was going ready to take up residence.
I don't blame her.
On my beautiful Oriental rug and the beautiful, and the finest food you could ever find, But anyway, so we got her all done and got her back home. So that was a good story.
Oh, that's very special. We want to take a quick break to thank our sponsor, Watkins Mechanical.
Hey y'all, it's Josh with Watkins Mechanical. Warm weather is finally here, and your system is working hard to keep you cool. Here are 3 quick tips to help. 1. Replace your air filters monthly. Restrictions cause your system to work harder and reduce your air quality. 2. Keep your outdoor unit clean. Remove any leaves, debris, or dirt for proper airflow. 3. Set your thermostat at a constant temperature. Programmable thermostats improve efficiency and help save you money. For quality service and lasting results, call Watkins Mechanical, trusted in the Low Country for over 25 years. Brian, whatever it takes.
There's a special story about what happened with Vacation Bible School at the Presbyterian Church. Now, I'm married to Robert now, and he's Baptist. He was born into that Baptist church, and he didn't get christened. They don't do that, but he was baptized later on in that Baptist church, and I knew there was no way. So I just jumped ship from the Presbyterian church and joined the Baptist church. But anyway, so for years I was at the Presbyterian church, and I was deacon, elder, and all that kind of stuff. But then one time there was a meeting about Vacation Bible School, and I wasn't there, but my cousin Bobby was there. And Bobby said, I went to this meeting and I volunteered you to have Vacation Bible School out at your house because the building was being totally refurbished, and the new everything was going to be redone, so they didn't have it available. So Bobby said, well, we'll just go out to Cookies at the Oaks, and we'll do the Bible school out there. So anyway, so we got out there and we had more fun than you can ever imagine. We even had some people from the Episcopal Church who wanted to come over, like Jane Manno. So she was in charge of the volleyball. And then we had one place with the cardboard that looked like maybe could have been an old place in Jerusalem of one of the peoples lived there, but it was rocks painted onto the cardboard. But anyway, that was Mary and Martha's house that looked like. Then we had the Sea of Galilee was the pool out. And then the River Jordan was the Chowan Creek.
Oh.
And then they set up a tent out in the middle of the yard, and they called that the temple. Anyway, they made the arts and crafts and all that.
That's fun.
I mean, there was so much fun going on. I couldn't stand to go to work. And I told them, anyway, so they had a great time.
That sounds like it.
And then the Episcopalians said that we heard that was so much fun, and we want to do Bible school out there next year, too. So they came the next year. And then, so we did that, and it was fine. That was one of my most pleasurable memories.
Was it a yearly thing after that, or just 2 years?
Just 2 years.
Just 2 years.
And then by that time, our building was back together,
Right.
But anyway, but those are,
I got to visit the Oaks once. It was a special place. How long did you live out there?
I was out there from, I think about 18 years or something like that, But, oh, wow, we're on the Oaks. We really need to get back to this. Is the very most important thing I think about this meeting is the Oaks where I bought by accident. That we don't have time to tell that story. It was accident.
It was an accident. That's accident though, right?
I'll give really quick on that, but get to the main point about it. A friend of mine was going to buy it, but she's just too expensive. But I went with her. She was an oncologist who gave me all of her patients, by the way. Anyway, so she said, no, I don't know. But it was for sale. Okay. And I remember there was anyway. And so, but she said, no, but I went with her to look at it just because I was going to go with her to look at it. I had no idea. I had some property down the creek, 5 acres down there. I didn't need another house. I had 5 acres already down payment paid. So we went there, and she says, oh, and don't like it, it's too much. Anyway, it shows up in the newspaper, for sale on the courthouse steps. I said, Jane, you better go think about this. I don't know the price, and I don't know what, but it's going to be for auction on the courthouse steps. She said, I am busy that day. I do not, and I look, well, it's not my problem, but I don't have time to go some auction, about some house that I might not even, but I knew she liked the house. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll go for you. I'll go for you.
Oh my gosh.
You don't go to an auction, and if you don't know how they work, okay? Because as I found out, I went to the auction, and there were real estate. I remember Harvey, what was her first name? Brantley's wife, Helen. Helen was there, and several other people that she was real estate. And then Tom Kimberlin, who years later I ended up doing chamber music. That's a whole nother story with Tom, but I hardly knew him. But anyway, he was a master in equity, I think, at that time. But they held the auction. And they opened it up, and nobody said anything. I thought, well, what's this about? Because it was for 200. I think the minimum price was like 200 price or something, 200,000. Okay, so I said, you know what? I'm going to show everybody here who had not said a word. So that tells you a little problem right there. But I said, I'm going to show them I'm in business, And Jamie told me only that price. But anyway, I said, just to tell them 210,000. It's that needed a lot of work. Nobody said anything to challenge it. And I said,
oh no.
I didn't even think as far as to say, oh no. I said, it's just odd, but hey, it's mine now. Nobody else. Anyway, by lunchtime, I learned that when you buy things on the courthouse steps, it's not just the price you ended up with at the bid, but any other liens that are on that house.
Oh, God.
Well, they're another 30,000.
Oh no.
I forget what, something like 30,000. So I went back and told Jane, and she said, I told you only 200,000. I go. She says, bye. She went back to her office to tend to her patients. I go, So I made several phone calls, and I found out that within about an hour or so, I had one real estate group that had taken it over, one bank, and there was another situation. I don't remember what that was. And I go, that's odd, because they would have had to pay the full price, the price I bid on, plus I go, Anyway, so I go into the master of equity, and I go, Judge Kimberlin, I made a terrible mistake. I bought a house I don't even need. I already have plans for a house down there on this 5 acres. I was doing this for a friend, and I was so ignorant, I didn't know that there was going to be a whole bunch of liens money. Anyway, he says, well, I'll tell you what, and Tom Kimberlin, he's sitting there, master of equity, very well endowed. He likes fried chicken. He's eating his fried chicken. And, like I say, anyway, later on we did chamber music. Great musician. But anyway, he said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I said, what? He said, I'm going to give you 2 choices. And I said, okay. He said, number 1, you can walk away now. No penalty, no nothing. You can walk away, walk out of this room, and you have no attachment to the situation. I said, that's pretty generous. He says, or number 2, you can go ahead and agree and keep that, what you would have to pay. I said, okay. He says, but, and it was like 20 minutes after 4 then. I remember distinctly, maybe less, because it was getting close to 4:30, and they closed his office at 5. He said, by 5 o'clock, you have. So he said, but whatever you decide, you may not change. I said, okay, let me go out into the hall and just kind of think about this a minute. So I went out there within 10 minutes, I thought about it. I said, it's got electricity, it's got water. It wasn't what I had planned. And we can live in this house, and I can kind of regroup and get some bearings on it. Because it did have a pool. It was on the river, but mine had 4 inches of water. No, the one I was already bought had 4 inches of less water at low tide than the one down at the at the house that I
Deeper
was
water.
going to buy. I said, well, that's significant. 4 inches, that's considerable, you know. And other than that, it was a sandbar. Anyway, so I walked back in. I said, I'll take it. You know, I just like that house. I'll just take that house. Okay. So that's how it came about.
Oh my God.
But anyway, so,
Wow.
okay, let's move on to the real meeting here. Okay, the Oaks has an amazing history to it.
It does.
We'll just have to hit it real quickly because
Okay.
we'll be here too long. Okay. And I didn't know that when I bought it, you know, and I go out there and I say, what's this plaque on the door? It says National Historic Register, you know. I said, what's the deal here? And nobody seemed to know, you know. It was just on the courthouse. So come to find out, it was the home of Penn Center. I said, well, that's nice, you know, but I had no idea what all that was going to lead to. But anyway, so I said, okay, the home of Penn Center. So I said, I better read up on it and find out what's going on, you know. So the whole thing started during, it was at the very beginning of Reconstruction. The troops had already moved in, the Northern troops, to South Carolina at this point. And so they had taken over the Oaks. You know, they just took over. They took over the different houses and whatnot. But they took over this one to be the officers' headquarters. Okay, that was this house. Well, just by coincidence, I had lived in the house on Bay Street, and it's called the Cuthbert House. They've really fixed it up now.
They have?
But it was not fixed up when I was there. But those were to be determined plans, you know. So anyway, but that was the officers' headquarters for the officers in the city. But the Oaks was for all the islands around. So all the officers, and repeated, there's lots of literature on it. They were having parties together, weddings and all like that. And I said, later on looking at it, I said, nothing's changed. We have a lot of weddings out there, and, you know, family weddings anyway. But so they started this school, and Laura Towne and Betty Murray were two Quaker missionaries, and they came down to start the school. And so the school was in the house, is what they said. But they were just there a little over a year, and then they moved out to where it is now, the location at the present day. You know. So, but they started the school, and so Laura Towne was more, I used to think she was kind of the head of the school, but more so it was Betty Murray that was the educational part. And when the Coolers were redoing that house and pulling out walls and whatnot, they found, this is what they told me, they found blackboards that they're behind the walls. So, yeah, I didn't see it myself, so I can maybe assume that's where that room is, where the kitchen was now.
Wow. Yeah.
Of course, back then the kitchen was outside, you know. So supposedly that's where it started, in the kitchen.
Very cool.
Interesting. And so Betty Murray was more of the education. And Laura Towne, I don't know specifically where it was a medical degree, but I think it was an official medical, like MD degree. But I can't say that for absolute sure. But anyway, what she did is get on horseback and ride all over St. Helena Island and visit all the little families and the little shanties around that needed any kind of medical care. And then they also brought in the new mothers and giving them education on how to be healthy, and this is how you can rear your children, take care of them. And so there were a lot of education aspects going on, as well as the academic school, the clinical education, you know. And then anyway, so just a rich history. And I said, gee, that's odd. Laura Towne came here, and then she gets on her horseback. Well, we had some horses, but I didn't do patients on horses. But she got on her horse and went around and did home care all among the islands. I said,
By horse.
that's kind of what I'm doing now, but I did go on horseback.
How fascinating.
taking all that. And then we had nursing agency, and we were always training all the time with different new nurses. Anyway, so I said, that's a lot of the same aspects going on. Yeah. But anyways, so I said, well, that's a lot going on. And then, so I said, okay, now, then you have like Marlena Smalls and her sister was, we all know Marlena was singing, but her sister was into the tour business. Well, she somehow, I guess she got my number, and they said, and of course, they did a lot with Penn Center, but she said, could we come bring some tour groups to your house? And I said, yeah, that's okay. And I thought, well, I'm starting a business, and that's kind of hard. They're trying to run a business. Yeah. I said, you know what? Yeah, just come on.
Just add it on.
So she did tours, and then she also did other things, some bicycle group that came through, and she wanted to do fancy dinners. So in their tours, I said, I never locked my doors anyway. And Granny, by this time, Granny was staying home. Granny would be sitting in the den. So I said, just bring your tour groups. I won't even, charge it. I later on charged them $300 a night for the big dinners they did on these fancy, like, bike clubs coming through. But anyway, on the tours, I said, you just come on in. So Granny so she really enjoyed the company. And so she would start telling them stories. And so they said, well, we love it when Granny tells stories about Beaufort way back when she was little, some stories, some of which were even true, and she would always say, well, now, Cookie, you never let the truth stand in the way of a good story, I said, well, excuse me. Anyway, we had this one table in the breakfast room, the case in point, that it was from the Chandler. My aunt married into the Chandler family, Joel Chandler Harris that wrote Uncle Remus and all those stories. Okay. Joel Chandler Harris. Anyway, well, since we had an aunt that married into that family, who knows what part of she was telling the tour people that he wrote his Uncle Remus stories right here on that breakfast table. And so we had to kind of get her straightened out about that she's telling all the tours. So that wasn't true, Anyway, so then I let them do their dinners. Well, I had so much a good time with all these people that come in for these fancy dinners. I let her use my silver and my linens and everything. Well, and the china, you want a nice wide Wedgwood china. I said, and here's all the linens. Now you can use all these linens, but I want them back in the drawer at the same place, cleaned and ironed, And I'm not doing any ironing. I only couldn't come by and maybe enjoy the company. But anyway, so we would do that, and that was fun. And this is interesting. Would you like to maybe ask a question?
No, I'm loving all these stories.
Would you like to get a word in edgewise? Anyway, but sometimes after the dinner, she would do a little performance for the guests, and they'd sing some Gullah songs and tap that cane on the floor to the rhythm, like they do when they sing. And I said, I could play my flute sometimes.
Oh my gosh!
So they said, well, why not? I said, I love Michael Row Your Boat Ashore. That was a good spiritual, right? Oh, I love that song. So I played that, and then they informed me that song originated on St. Helena Island. Had you ever heard that?
Really? The Row Your Boat?
The one that goes like this, Michael, row your boat ashore. That one.
Okay.
And
did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know.
They say, and that's a well-known Negro spiritual. Mm-hmm. And so they said it originated in St. Helena Island.
Huh.
That's what they said now. So I think they're telling their history right,
Well, we thank you so much for coming on
Thank
today.
you,
We
Cookie.
really appreciate it.
Well, I enjoyed it, obviously.
This was so fun.
It has been so much fun. Can you just talk
We'll
with
have to
you?
do a part 2 for
Yes.
sure, because this was so fun.
Story about the cataract surgery.
I know.
thought.
Oh, that's great.
It's a good one.
That's a good one.
Thank you so much,
We
Cookie.
appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Of course.